source for Warhammer Underworlds and Under 30 fond memories of Season 4. I'm your host, Davy, and with me, as always, is my other host, Phil. How are you, Phil?
Hey, doing pretty good.
Yeah, and we brought someone with us to talk some of these memories as Season 4 enters its dying bit of twilight here, and that is Matt from Set the Tempo blog. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back. I don't know if this is a record for fastest return visit from a guest. I'll have to consult the archives, but that's a pretty quick turnaround as we go. Important context on today's episode. We have seen a grot and a bird from the upcoming Season 5. We're not sure any more than that. By the time you hear this, you will know more than we do right now, because it is about to be the is it for Gen Con, like the online Gen Con, or what is it?
Yeah,
it sounds like it's going to be a bunch of reveals at Gen Con for all the... I mean, I guess it looked like it was pretty much every system. There's going to be some sort of announcements. So
Yeah.
Lots of news in the next few days.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to be doing some roundtable questions today. I'm going to start you off with one, since this is coming down. What are you most excited about to see coming up? Like, what's the thing you're looking forward to most discovering? We'll throw it to you, Matt.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to trying to find a new kind of forever warband. I want to find a new passion, and seeing the bird, and I'm really hoping the Stormcast are it. Yeah. So
you're a Stormcast guy, right? Because you were, was it Astral Templars? Is it? Or we talked purple. I remember that.
Yeah. It's Lions of Sigmar. It's golden purple.
That's right. Yeah. I remember the purple piece. What about you, Phil?
Yeah. Also, really curious about what like. I want to know numbers of fighters. It'll be curious if they go 4 and 4 again. I'm hoping that they're going bigger again this time, just to change things up a bit. And I think the orcs would lend themselves well to being a larger warband.
Oh, yeah. Especially if they're taking slots on grots. Slots on grots, as we think so.
Slots on grots.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just excited to get into a new season, and just hope to see some new untrodden ground. Sure.
For me, it's just seeing new models, and I would hope I'm hoping we get that cool cryptic, like here's some symbols of warbands to come.
Yeah,
because that's always a fun thing to kind of pore over and get your big bulletin board up with the red string and all that sort of thing, trying to figure out what's what. So so let's we'll hop through our usual pieces here. Got some community shout outs. I wanted to shout out, I just listened today on my run. I listened to Path to Glory. They put out a survey and kind of talked through some of that, and I thought that was some interesting listening. And they'll be the first to say this. I think one of the things they learned is how hard it is to write a survey, because there was a bunch where they were like, gosh, I'm not exactly sure what people, how people interpreted this question. And my sister, who is a information science, library science major, would be proud to hear that her area of expertise is getting a little respect over in our corner here. It was cool to get some feedback, and if you are listening to that, there's some strong emotions on display, and I just encourage you to listen all the way through, because there's some real thoughtful commentary as they go. So I didn't have the same take all the way through as the host, but that's what makes it fun, is to kind of hear. It's not fun when everybody agrees, so we get to hear some other takes. Matt, did you have something you wanted to shout out?
Yeah, I wanted to shout out the Battle for Salvation episode about Canaan's Reapers that had my local buddy Derek talking about the Bone Boys with Max and Randall, And if you haven't listened to that episode, it's pretty hilarious. It's a good laugh. Kind of both ends of the spectrum on those two podcasts that I really enjoyed lately.
I got a good kick out of it, as they found new ways to insert the word bro into almost every word. It's pretty fun. And meanwhile, you can hear Derek and Max lean into it, and like Randall's soul slowly withering away over his, and it was pretty entertaining,
as it should be.
Yeah. So yeah, good shout out. That was cool. Let me ask you this: I actually ended up hearing the unedited version. So there was some extra stuff in there. Did he have a song? He's been doing like a crazy song at the start of some of these episodes. Did you hear the edited take?
So I heard unedited as well, and I actually went back when the re-upload happened to try to see if there was a song, and there was not.
That's okay. He's got some gems in there, so you got. I'm sure that's a lot of work, and they're trying to hustle to get through season 4. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's okay. You can always do a little cleanup.
Maybe before the street date of season 5.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, we also ask, what the heck is going on with you, Matt, as our guest? What the heck is going on with you?
I actually, a couple of weeks ago, got a chance to go to an Age of Sigmar tournament. Which was the first one I had ever played.
Lions of Sigmar?
Yep. Yeah, I played my Stormcast, 2,000 points. And I was hoping to win one game all day because I'm pretty new to the system. And I ended up going 2-1 and placed 8th out of 32.
Whoa. So, there you go. Wow. Overachieving. All right.
I was pretty happy with that. Like it was, cool. It was nice. There was a big raffle at the end. It was just lots of fun being back at a tournament in general.
Yeah. I think I kind of missed that vibe more than I realized. So I think that first taste getting back will feel pretty good. Phil, I know you've been busy. Is it continuing the same? Are we staying on theme?
I am still busy. That is definitely still true, and will continue to be true for quite a while still, I think. But I have started looking forward to building decks without Beastgrave, and it's rough, people. It's rough. I'm really hoping that the starter set for season 5 adds some nice options for us.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a pretty limited set of play styles when we first get in there, unless there's some nice additions.
Yeah, it would be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah. I just built I've been playing a little like Blade Coven deck with only Direchasm cards because I love the Warband.
Yeah.
I wish that they could perform. So they're kind of my default. Like I just want to check some dice and I'll probably die. Warband, and I had some fun on the weekend playing with them. Yeah. But it's rough.
That's a warband it's crazy to me. On paper, after coming from Reavers, I'm like, look at this. Like, they're quick. They got extra range. They've got they got a ton going for them. These seem like they're Reavers but better, and it's just like, it's hard to get the pieces to click. You're like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. So,
yeah. I've got some thoughts about that, but we could probably save that for later in the episode, even because there's some stuff that I think lends itself to that.
Perfect. Real quick, my most recent hobby was our local Warhammer store fella. Vint was getting ready to go to a tournament. And he needed some objective markers, and so I was wanting to hook him up. So I painted up these some of the terrain, like the Night Vault terrain that went to sort of floating gem things, and had got some good luck with kind of a contrast paint. They got a cool effect on them. Totally unintentional. Haven't done it before, but it was a happy surprise. And I guess he brought him and he got some compliments. So I'm looking forward to getting him back and having a little bit of that to I don't know, make prettier pictures for my warbands as I go.
Nice.
Painting is the other thing that's slowing me up on the Hexodus blog. I have a post written, and I'm hoping to finish off painting this warband for it, so I can get the next post up on that. But more when that happens. So let's get into it. We got a bunch of roundtable questions. We kind of brainstormed up some stuff, and we are going to throw it around. So you guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
Love it.
All right. I am going to start. Let's see. We're going to ask. So we've had the full season. We'll talk about. So I'll talk about Direchasm, but also talk about season 4. I think of season 4 as the Beastgrave and Direchasm cards. So just for terminology there, if we're talking season 4, we're kind of talking, like over the course of this year, which includes, the existing Beastgrave stuff. And if we talk Direchasm only, that means we're limiting it to that sort of thing. So let's talk about let's start with the cards. We often start with the cards. So give me an objective, a gambit, and an upgrade that was your favorite from this season and why. And it doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the card that you thought was the best. Just what did you think of a card that came out in Direchasm? And give me one from each category that's your favorite. And Matt, if you are ready, give us any or all.
Let's do this. So for the objective, I picked Perfect Strike. A 2 glory surge for dealing exact damage and rolling only successes. I think it's a really fun risk reward card. I think it's really good for a lot of 2 smash attacks. I think it's really good on my favorite warband, Rippas. So it's just a really fun design because it's pretty hard to pull off, but you can manipulate it in your favor.
Yeah, you know Definitely. What? I had that in there as mine, and I was like, this is really exciting. And I thought about, the reason I'm even thinking about this is because of a conversation with Matt. I think there's a good chance he's going to snag it. So I called an audible and switched off, but I really like that one. It's an exciting one to go. Let's keep it on you. What do you got for a gambit?
For Gambit, I'm going to shout out quickly the Essentials pack for reprinting my favorite Gambit in the game and Countercharge. But talking about literally just the season, I'm going to go with Eternal Chase.
Oh, you did snatch one away from me there.
Oh,
that's all right. Keep it going.
I can say hunting season because honestly, it's that effect that I really like.
Yeah. Talk Eternal Chase though.
Yeah, I really think it's super interesting design. I like the fact that it unlocks in a persistent gambit the way that you can really manipulate any of the Hunter Quarry interactions on any objective card or other gambit or upgrade. I really like the ability to counterplay with it as well, like playing it in response to a Spectral Wings.
Yeah.
Like nothing feels better than that.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting card. It does so much in one little package, and it unlocks so much. It can double speeds of a warband. It's so interesting that it's not overly powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really like, is I think it does what it needs to do without breaking the game.
Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Some warbands really want it. Some are kind of interested in. Many of those warbands are wanting it for different reasons, and that's a really fun card for them to put together. So, what do you got for upgrades?
I'm going to go with Formidable Defense.
Okay.
So -1 attack dice, +1 defense dice, and it makes you a quarry. I think it is so interesting that it kind of takes the place of cards like Acrobatic and Spectral Armor that we saw that were just a flat defense upgrade, and really gives a downside that is very meaningful. And says, okay, you can have this very defensive fighter. They're just not going to be a powerhouse, on the offensive. and it's that trade-off that I think is just super compelling.
Yeah. It's been. I mean, Phil, you've been using that in your Stalkers deck.
Yep.
And by and large, you're putting on skinks, right? And so it's like, okay, like it doesn't matter if this one guy, but then you've been in times like, I guess I'm gonna make a 1 dice attack with this dude. Like, here we go. So the trade-off is real, even when you're putting it on little fighters, especially towards the end of the game where every attack is pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, it's more often than not, like when I'm using it in like Stalkers, for instance, it's like I basically don't care about their attacks, but I really need to be able to stay on objectives. So I'm like, well, I don't care about the trade-off. But then there are times where it's like, all I need to do is knock you off this objective so that I can get on it. And I need to hit you with 1 fury. Oops, that's going to be tough. So yeah, I mean, it can, there's risk to that as well.
Sure.
Even if you're putting it on like Autopodal and he's suddenly 4 defense or whatever.
Phil, do you have? Oh, go ahead.
Pro tip: it combos with my first choice of Perfect Strike because you're rolling out one less dice.
Amazing.
Sure.
Get the rerolls in there, and you're good to go.
Exactly.
That Perfect Strike meta coming soon. Phil? What's your suite of choices here?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a number of objectives that I think are fun and good. I think the one that I like having in the game right now the most is probably dominant position. I think it's just a healthy choice for hold objectives. Still end phase, so you don't just get it immediately, but it has a decent payoff. And if you can just play around your opponent, it's fairly scoreable, but it has easy interaction. So it's hard to completely lock it out. Like some of the tactical, genius tactical, whatever the ones for holding 2 were called, I can't remember.
Supremacy.
Yeah. But anyway, so having, specific numbers meant that sometimes like a single push locked you out of a ton of damage or a ton of glory. Whereas dominant position, sometimes even if your opponent has pushes, if they just ignored objectives, you can still score it. So I think it helps bridge some of the gap that we had from Beastgrave, where hold objectives got too much help and brought things back into line a little bit. In terms of ploys, there's a lot of really good choices in here. I think ploys maybe are some of the strongest suite of cards in Season 4. There's just lots of really good options and nothing that I think is, well, not nothing, but there's a number of things that are like perfectly fine to continue to exist. Like we don't have to be too concerned about things like a speed package existing again or stuff that became too ubiquitous. But one card that I really enjoy being in the game, although I don't think it's really getting much use right now because it's a little hard to build around, is Acidic Strike.
You guys are killing me. All right.
And I really love having the kind of interaction where you're not just playing into killing fighters, but also being able to like play with your opponent's resources. I think that kind of control play style has a place in the game. It's still tied to attack, so it's not just like play a card, destroy, and upgrade, because sometimes hard control can get a little out of hand in this game. But tying it to an attack where you can, like, if you know you can't get the kill, at least you can like wear down your opponent a little bit, and I think that can be pretty strong. For the upgrades, I mean, there's a lot of really strong ones, but a lot of the really strong ones I don't actually like being in the game all that much. There's a lot of just plus dice right now, which I don't think is necessarily where things should be. It's maybe a little too easy to get lots of extra dice and damage right now. But I did really enjoy. So I really like Berserker Rage, just because I think that that's a fun, like, while it is plus dice and plus damage, it's a nice trade-off in that, like, that fighter is basically dead now. Like, all your opponent has to do is roll a success and they're getting hit, and that likely means they're dead. So I like the trade-off that you have there. And it also lets me play Reavers and have a whole bunch of fun with letting my guys die.
Good choices. For me, my objective was dominant position, just because I thought it was so defining, and I thought it made objectives matter for everyone. Instead of one person just trying to get to 3, it was, well, I've bumped him off of enough. Like, now if I got a spare fighter, is it worth it for me to step on one to maybe shut down dominant? I thought that was cool. So my backup is clean kills, also because it's a 2 glory, it's aggro, and then it's got counterplay. Like, I think it's a pretty fun. I don't know that it's the strongest, but I think it's one that, especially as rotation occurs, you're gonna be looking at when your options are more limited. I love objectives that have counterplay, like dominant position. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I was Eternal Chase for reasons already mentioned. My backup was Acidic Strike for reasons already mentioned. I think it's good because it can rotate in. Then landed at if I got to go 3 deep, then I'm gonna cheat and go into like a faction card. And so I went with Shared Pain, just because
so good.
There's so many cool tricks, and it's such a mind game when you're playing against it. You're trying to watch, okay, like, they're close, how close are they to each other? And it's just, I really enjoy I was playing in our league final against Brian, and I was trying to play around it. Finally, I'm like, I just got to make my play and hope he doesn't have it. If he's got it, I'm in trouble. And he didn't, but I loved how hard I was having to work around just the possibility that he had it. It was pretty sweet. So, for the upgrades, I really liked the space that the Savage Speed sat in. I thought the -1 defense, +2 speed, gain Hunter was a cool set of trade-offs. So if you're trying to lean into a Hunter situation, that was good. I like that whole vibe. I thought it was a well-designed card, and it's just such a small tweak off of, Savage Strength, even a smaller tweak off of Great Strength. But I thought it was neat how much different you could be with just a couple minor changes to a card. So that was where I landed. Well, let's talk. Give me what was your favorite? We'll say a favorite thing about the Direchasm release as a whole. Now, this could be a design choice or whatever. That's broad as you want it. So, Matt, we'll come back around to you. You have an overall favorite thing and/or Warband?
I feel like I'm going to steal your guys' things again, but I think my favorite thing about Direchasm has been the interactive control options. We talked about it a lot in our favorite cards. But I feel like the play style really evolved, and there's so many more options, but they all involve your opponent. And I thought that was really super compelling. I think the design space of a lot of the cards has been really fascinating. And it's been really fun to see that happen.
Yeah. Phil?
Yeah. I think it's similar. I like that they're starting to push warbands to be like more unique, to do more things that are different from other warbands. So, like you mentioned with the Dread Pageant, how they have that really unique mechanic in their card to be able to spread damage around. Obviously, Elthane's Soul Raid has a ton of like really interesting mechanics that they can do that are completely new to the game and very different from what anything else can do. Like I guess you can keep going, but like I get the one other that I'll say is from the vampires, like having essentially two different inspire mechanics on the same fighters. I think it allows for a whole bunch more flexibility. It makes sure that the game is just not going to get stale, and I really think that that's something that they need to continue to push, even if it means that they maybe like overswing or underswing on some things. Like I would rather that we have really interesting mechanics in the game and potentially get the balance slightly off than to have very safe mechanics that mean that we don't end up like blowing out any sort of like cards being too strong or anything, but then having everything feel very samey.
That kind of dovetails with mine. My favorite thing about the Direchasm release was that they managed to make so many interesting warbands. Again and again, when I try out one of the new warbands, I'm like, I'm having a ton of fun with this. You know, like we played the Mad Mob, and I was using the deck that you'd built, and I was giving away and picking back up the primacy and having all kinds of cool tricks. And after we had Rewall on for talking Ideneth, I went and played them and loved playing that. Like it was again and again, playing warbands was just kind of wowed by how fun they were and how interesting the mechanics were. And I feel like I've experienced that with previous seasons, but not on such a consistent level throughout the season. So hats off to them for how they put those warbands together.
Definitely.
Let's get the other side of that. Do you have a regret or disappointment about we'll call it season 4 rather than the Direchasm release here? So something that you're kind of wishing could have been different, and we'll go back to you, Matt.
I think just with the season being completely within, the COVID-19 pandemic, I think lack of events and lack of like kit support. I'm just really sad there won't all art cards of most of these fighters. I'm sad that there's no promos or acrylics. Like that cycle of even going to local tournaments is just fun, and to get everybody swag and to get everybody excited about the game. Obviously, like it hasn't been the time for tournaments this season, so there's not much that could have been done on that point. But it is something that, for a season that had a lot of promise, it would have been really nice.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think I realized how much I missed that piece of it until we were in the other day, and I was kind of looking through the old boxes, trying to find. We're looking for basically what was in there. I was like, oh man, and I was just picturing like all the stuff that could have been for season 4 as well. But, Phil, what about you?
Well, so there's a couple things. I guess I'll just start by saying that in a similar vein to having things disrupted for play with COVID, having the release cycles get all messed up really felt bad. Like there were times where it just felt like it was just a ridiculous pace of releases, and we never really got a chance to breathe with a warband. And I feel like now we've had an opportunity to really appreciate them, but I don't know. There's something that's always been fun about the game with like getting the new warbands, getting the new cards, and then having, a pause to sort of play with all the new stuff, integrate it, rework decks, trying to, see what sticks. I almost feel like until the final release of this series of sets that we'd never really even had that, because it was like as soon as you got something built, there'd be a new set of cards come out and you'd be like, all right, here we go, start over.
Well, let me ask you, if it had started if it had started on time, we've now kind of experienced what it feels like to have warbands come out one at a time and what it feels like to have them come out in pairs. Do you have a preference? Adjust the one at a time, maybe spread that out a little bit, because even the one at a time was compressed this season because of that. What's your what do you think your preference would be if you were king of Direchasm, king of Underworlds, and got to decide?
Yeah. Well, if I was Nagash, I think that I
You be
would. I think I like just one release at a time. It's not it's just enough cards to change things up. It gives the spotlight to that warband, and allows for pretty consistent releases without it being like crazy. Obviously, like there can be releases where there's just like almost nothing for your warband, and that can kind of feel bad if you're like really into one warband and your playstyle didn't really get any new support. You're like, well, I guess I just keep rocking what I've got.
Yeah.
But I think just generally, I like getting each warband to have its own room to breathe.
What about you, Matt? If you could make the decision on that, where would you go with it?
I think I actually probably at the start of the season would have said single release. But thinking about it more, I actually really liked the pairs. And the reason being is I felt like then when the warbands released, you kind of had a split of what people were playing, as opposed to just, well, everybody's playing the exact new warband and it's going to be a bunch of mirror matches.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I remember clearly, like, when Elthari's and Thundrick dropped, it was kind of this split in our local scene where it was like some people were into dwarves and some people were into elves. And it was really interesting because, it was kind of like, okay, you got practice into both, and it wasn't just here's the one warband coming out that you might not be interested in.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm exactly the same boat. I think coming in, I was like, yeah, one at a time sounds great, but I think the pair, and I hadn't even maybe put that piece of it, but I think I do like some of those periods of relative stability. We've said many times that we like when the game is in flux, but after having it be in flux for the entire season, that was a little bit too much. So I like the kind of like musically you'd call it like sort of the tension release, where like you'd get to kind of a steady state and then shuffle it all up, shake it all up. That makes the exciting times maybe a little more exciting because you've reached some however briefly steady state. And I wonder, and this kind of leads me into my little bit of a disappointment. I wonder if that led to difficulty in creating an FAQ or a FAR. If the meta is never stable, it gets more difficult to figure out like what the problem, if there is a problem, might be. And there's too many new things, like, well, let's delay the FAQ a little bit longer because now we got to deal with these things and we got to get these answers right. So which is to say, then my biggest disappointment was just getting through the whole season, and we're not sure of the timing on primacy and a couple other things, and that horse has been beaten to death a few times over in other places. But it is just disappointing. There's some things that I think, even I think you could, there's plenty of questions you could come up with, but I think you could probably get yourself a list of like 10 important ones that would clear up a whole bunch of things for us. So and a lot of it hinges around primacy, because that's and that feels like to some degree a failure in the play testing process somewhere. Because that seems like a pretty important thing. You've got this thing that's happening after, and they've been real good about laying out the timing, laying out the attack sequence, that sort of thing. And so I would expect it will be cleaned up at some point, because they've shown that they are capable of doing so. But I just don't understand quite how we got through the whole season without that. So only can guess or speculate why. Let's see. Let's split the difference here. Is there something that you feel on the fence about, like at the end of the season, when's all said and done, that you are not sure whether you like or do not like, as far as a design choice or a warband or a card? Where are you at? Give me something that you still haven't made up your mind about. We'll go to you, Matt.
I'm going to say the primacy mechanic. I'm gonna choose the pig one. I think it's been a very polarizing thing. I early on, I would say that I definitely didn't like it, and I think there's been more ways to manipulate it and more ways that it's gone up and down. I feel like it really brings a one-shot focus to the game. Again, I think it really can be a rich get richer. Like, I've just got a fighter with, because I got great strength early and you didn't, I'm now going to get primacy all the time. And you might not be able to one-shot my fighters. There's, I think it can be very interesting, but like I said, I think I'm just on the fence about it. I'm on the fence on whether I think it adds and whether or not it's going to be around in seasons after this, other than head crackers. Like that's going to be a really interesting one to me. Like, is this now something that we're always living with?
Yeah. We're still living with magic, but how many of these other ones will get added or become sort of permanent dwellers in our game? Phil, do you have something that meets this criteria? Something you're on the fence about?
Yeah. So I was originally thinking that this might just be something I was disappointed about, but I kind of oscillate back and forth about it. So I think it fits really well in here, in that we've seen a lot of emphasis on objective or upgrade stacking, and being rewarded for stacking upgrades. And I just don't know. I don't know that I like that as a payoff in the game. Like, ostensibly getting multiple upgrades is already a good thing to do on a fighter. You're already getting improved stats, extra weapons, better attacks, what have you. And I don't know that you really need there to be a bigger payoff for having more upgrades. And like, there was certain points in this season where it felt kind of oppressive, for somebody just kind of doing what they would always do anyway, and then having it snowball out of control. So on the one hand, it's like, well, adding in more ways to score, I think, is going to be important going forward with the game, because like I said, like, having warband diversity is a thing that adds, it adds interest to the game. If everybody starts just being somewhere in a sort of gray middle ground of flex, then everything, it's like just different skins on the same warbands. So, well, it could be good, I think, if we continue to see like tons of upgrades where it's like, if you have 4 of these upgrades, suddenly your fighter turns into, a monster and can't ever be stopped. It can become polarizing for warbands that can't benefit as much from that.
Sure. For me, I'm gonna get real specific, and I'm gonna get real specific with a particular warband, which may be my favorite warband to play. And my I'm on the fence is Spinefin. I think it's such a cool fighter, or cool piece of that, and integral to the warband. But I think I'm on the fence because of the language, and maybe this would get cleared up with an FAQ. But when you say like, this fighter cannot be taken out, if it would be, then take it off the board. Like, you create so many difficult decisions when that happens. Like, there's a lot of things that are like, I'm not exactly sure how this interacts, or certainly for newer players, it's kind of a nightmare, for understanding how that fish, like what you can and can't score off that fish, and what works and doesn't work. And what reactions can trigger, at what point is the whole thing interrupted. And so while I love all the cool tricks, I'm on the fence because when you introduce a lot of sort of uncertain elements, then it's a little bit of a bummer sometimes with the game experience. So love-hate relationship with that piece there.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to your other point with primacy, and just that, like, we just need clarification. Like, there's always rules questions, and there always will be. So, like, having 6-month hiatuses of no, like, designer commentary to just understand what it was intended to do, I think is almost, like, it's kind of unacceptable, really. Like, you're marketing a game as being like the ultimate competitive war game or whatever, and then you have very important, like, questions about how the game functions that aren't getting answered, that should be fairly quick to answer. So yeah.
So we've talked a bunch about primacy. Primacy was one of the two key mechanics that arrived with Direchasm, hunger being the other. And for the purposes of season 4, I'm going to include hunter and quarry because that kind of really matured this season. So we've spent a lot of time on primacy. So let's talk. Give me your take on how you feel they executed hunger, and then where you feel the hunter quarry got to in season 4, Matt.
Well, hunger is really just for vampires. There was no effective way to make that happen. Like, and there's design space that could have been, hey, here's a 21st card. You don't put it in your deck, and it, give one fighter a hunger counter at the start of every round. Like it just starts in play, which is effectively activating the hunger. There were ways to make it available to every other warband. It's just not available. And that's the real problem. Like, you might have something to reference it and be like, oh, hey, I actually got a hunger counter. I get cleave on this ferocious blow. Surprising. But it really is just a vampire mechanism. And like the raise cards in the first Arena Mortis, like, they just become in-faction cards for one warband.
Yeah, we saw that some early on with Hrothgorn and Hunter Quarry. There were so many cards that were effectively only his, and I think you just give yourself a really difficult task when you have to write cards that are really have like a huge ceiling with one warband, and but still you would like to be useful with other warbands.
Yeah.
And so I think they had a pretty tough task there. Anything to add about the hunger piece, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, basically it's kind of in the same space that Quarry was, I think, at the end of Beastgrave, where there's plenty of cards that interact with the mechanic, but there's just no payoff. Like, there's no reason to be a Quarry. And in fact, being Quarries, like, it used to be where it was like, being a quarry has no downside, but as soon as someone plays Hrothgorn, you're like, well, crap, now I have all this stuff that's an active, like, well, I guess it's not an active problem, but he's playing all the stuff that cues off of being a quarry, and so you don't want to just continue to stack that. So it, like, with hunger, it feels like we're probably going to continue to get it, and maybe we won't, but I feel like it's going to end up being in the same state where it's like the payoffs are going to come in the next season. And so then it's going to be like, oh, you now have an incentive to include these cards that otherwise just didn't do enough for you to, take up deck space.
Yeah. I mean, they'll still be in a dangerous spot with the vampires. So we'll see. Yeah. I wonder if there'd been a in the same way that primacy had a separate card, although maybe this would be too much bloat, but hunger was advertised as this, like, a little bit is good, too much is bad, and there were a few cards that demonstrated that, like feral symbiote. If you got too many hunger, you start taking damage, and I think there was something like oppressive heat or something like that, where too much people with too much hunger would get penalties. I wonder if there was like a universal-ish rule in the same way that primacy exists almost universally, like any fighter at the end of the round, any fighter with 3 or more hunger takes a damage or something like that, or has
Yeah.
one less defense, or whatever. There may have been a way to, and I don't know if that changes anything. But yeah, there may have been another way to go about it. Hunter Quarry, where do we feel like? How do we feel like that showed itself in season 4?
I think it's in a really good spot, which I was kind of surprised by. Like, there's good reasons to be hunters. There's good reasons to be quarries. I feel like, and maybe this is intentional, but I feel like hunter mechanics tend to lean aggro. Quarry mechanics seem to have payoffs that are more control or hold objectives, and it feels very appropriate. And I really like the interaction that it still has. There's a lot of cards that are for hunters that trigger off of quarries. There's a couple things that's like quarries that trigger off of dealing with hunters. So it feels like they really found a balance. They hit a stride. I mean, maybe it's just my take, but I feel like it's in a really great spot, and I actually really enjoy playing quarry stuff with the stalkers. I think it's really fun.
I would challenge a little bit about the and so I'll say this. I think it's in a pretty good spot. I think it matters to be a hunter and a quarry, and that's interesting. The piece I would challenge is that I feel like they could have done a little bit better leaning into a particular thing. Like there's a lot of quarry that gives you like cleave or an extra dice on attack, or there's a lot of offensive, and so I feel like the
That's
roles of hunter
true.
and quarry are a little more muddied. I think they might have been able to differentiate with some clear roles. I don't know. What do you feel about the hunter quarry situation, Matt?
I would say that probably the Beastgrave season gave us a lot of incentive to be a hunter, and I feel like right now it's way more important to be a quarry. And so I think it's kind of vacillated back and forth. But I think like the warbands, the cards, and players are interacting with the mechanism, and I think that that's what makes a successful mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
whether or not it's perfect, like you mentioned Magic earlier, and nobody's playing Magic. Like that's rare. You play, the good spell in your faction, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Davey.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's funny, like you say, people are playing it now, and that's good to the extent that there are hunter quarry cards from Beastgrave that I am convinced are part of Direchasm. I was going to put as an objective that I liked from Direchasm as the hunter hunted. I was like, yeah, I really like that one. I'm looking through, I'm like, where is it? And I'm like, oh my god, it's Beastgrave. It's about to go. No.
Yeah.
Because it didn't really unlock until you hit Direchasm.
Completely agreed. And so I think like that's actually kind of perfect transition because one of the questions that I wrote was kind of favorite card combo.
Yeah, let's do it.
And mine was the Hunter Hunted and Hunting Season or Eternal Chase.
Yeah.
Like it was something that I was playing early in the season, and the Hunter Hunted is a 2 glory surge for a quarry killing a hunter, which is really easy to do. And I learned in the Alliance League that Path to Glory ran that I never realized that all the Crypt Ghouls and Grimwatch are hunters. And so Slake Slash got to walk up activation 1, 3 Fury, 2 damage into the Butcher, and I scored turntables and the Hunter Hunted for a 4 glory kill.
Oh man, that feels good. Dropping just a little ghoul and knocking that down.
Oh yeah. I just think there's so much there. Like I love Hunting Season and Eternal Chase for reasons that I've talked about, but just opening those up and saying anytime I kill this round, I'm getting this 2 glory surge. Oh, it's just a really fun little interaction.
Yeah. Phil, did you have a favorite combo?
Not especially. Mostly because I was playing a ton of Stalkers, and the Stalkers didn't use a ton of combos per se. There's a lot of fun interaction that you can do with like teleports and moving objective mechanics and things to get on objectives easily and then be able to score. But it's not exactly a combo, because it's only just like play a card. That's not a combo. You need 2 cards. But there's a couple things that I think we just recently got that I think should allow for interesting interactions with cards that could be make for fun combos from the most recent Arena Mortis set. So one of them that I think we even just talked about on the combo episode, funny enough, that the combo episode had tons of combo stuff that we talked about. But like having some of those setup attacks, weapons, even if you're not playing the actual combo keyword mechanic, are like guaranteed hits. So if we continue to have stuff like Acidic Strike or things that trigger off of like driving a fighter back, if you want to like guarantee that stuff happens, use an attack like the setup where it only does 1 damage, but it's like a 75% chance of a success because all you have to do is roll a success. Like I like that kind of stuff. I don't want there to be like huge combos where it's like, and I just win the game, because unless it's like a 3 or 4 card setup, which that would be cool. But if it's like, I play this card and then, hey, look, your whole warband is dead, which like that's maybe too easy. Which in some ways, getting back Mighty Swing kind of enables, but there's positioning stuff that has to happen with that. So,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of fun cards. A lot of the like on fighter death mechanics that you get in the Arena Mortis sets, I think, are also things that have potential for combos, but isn't very well supported, and I don't think it will be because they just like lean away from that pretty heavily. But it's some of the stuff that at the end of season 2 was some of my most favorite things to do, especially with Reavers and the Blue Horror. How about you, Davey?
Well, I correctly guessed that Matt might snake that Hunter Hunted out from under me, so I had a backup. And this is a pretty simple one, but it leans into those Savage upgrades that I was talking about. And playing Reavers, I liked getting like Savage Strength, Savage Visage out, and then all of a sudden,
nice.
Blooded Sayak is flying in for 4 damage with full rerolls. That feels pretty good.
Definitely.
So, those are. It's a simple combo, and both those cards work just fine on their own. And so I think that's why I particularly enjoyed it. There was because it didn't feel like, oh man, if I don't get both parts of this, then what am I even doing? So
right. And that sort of goes back to the point of like maturing the Hunter core mechanic, and that we are opening up those mechanics to all the warbands now that didn't have access to them innately. And I feel like that's where a lot of these kinds of mechanics need to be, which Hunger is not. And so hopefully we can get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Good question there, Matt. Actually, let's go with your other ones, because I like this one too. Give us your best Underworlds memory or match from the season. So, most memorable moment, we'll call it. Matt, can you think of one? Can you bring one up and say this is it?
Yeah, I think the one that, I would say the Alliance League Path to Glory in general was a really fun time. It was a really cool thing to take part in. And favorite match would have been my semifinal game against Gora. I was playing Dread Pageant into Ripa, and had kind of tooled things into, just a very control stance. And it was like facing a dark mirror of myself, because I know the warband very well. So it was a very tense match, and came down to won glory the first game, and I won on objectives the second game. Like it was something like a 1 glory differential over 2 games. But it was a really like it's one of those matches that you walk away from and you're just exhausted. I think it was like 10 a.m. and I was done for the day.
Just spent.
Yeah,
nice. Phil, you got a memorable moment?
So I think it's not like anything gameplay wise, but after we were away from being able to play for so long, getting to just get together in Aaron's backyard and play some real physical Underworlds again was probably the highlight of the season.
Stalker's chosen axes, as I recall.
Yeah, well, nice. and having Stalkers lose to chosen axes, but it was just like there's nothing like super crazy memorable in terms of gameplay, but like,
yeah,
it just felt good to roll dice again. And like, I just don't get the same feeling from playing online. And it's great that we can, but like just being there in person, moving models, rolling dice, this is just really awesome. And I guess it's not any one particular memory, but like I do have a lot of fond memories of like trying to MacGyver my way out of games that do go poorly with Stalkers and being like, okay, I've got 3 skinks left. How can I, maneuver and get glory? And somehow they seem to do it fairly frequently, not necessarily winning, but like keeping games close, which just always feels pretty good.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to give an honorable mention to a couple of games of Eyes of the Nine against Skylar's Wild Hunt, which they were just insane and came down to like just a few choices. It's just exactly how you want an Underworlds game to go, where there's some big swings and it came down to the last few power cards and dice rolls. Those were really enjoyable, and he's a great guy to play against for those. But I also participated in the Alliance League and then the Nations Cup, which wasn't Alliance format, but had a similar vibe where you're kind of doing matchups. And weirdly, I'm going to give it to, I had a mirror match of Ripas versus Ripas against, I think, Janek from Poland. And he, I think, I would say he's on balance, a better Ripas player than I am, or, certainly had more experience. And it was just great because I'd played the mirror before. I'd actually played the mirror in the Path to Glory Alliance League. And so I had some experience with it, and I feel like we both knew pretty well, the warband, and it was just fun to see. He had a really good plan coming in, and it was fun to see him set up. And I had to kind of adapt on the fly to be like, oh, I didn't anticipate, as much as I maybe should have, because it was like it was an open lists thing. So we both knew each other's lists pretty well, and he'd correctly read the room basically. And I had some dice luck to help me there, but it was fun where it was like, I know that I know that I'm trying to do this, and it created some great tension of like, can I find a way to make you attack my Ripa before you should? How hard can I pressure you with this so I can get the other guys inspired? You haven't shown narrow escape yet. For me, I had a bunch of reactions in my deck, and so I tried to make a point of always keeping at least a couple power cards in hand to like at least be able to bluff like, yeah, I might have Furious Reprisal. I might have narrow escape. Like I might have the Go on Guard one. Why am I blanking on that? But Buried Instinct. So it was a fun chess match, and I feel like I learned a lot just in the match watching somebody really good with Ripas play them. So that was mine. Yeah, wouldn't have expected to spend my answer on a mirror match, but here we are. So
if it makes you feel better, I also love that mirror. Yeah, I think it's a really like interesting match. Unlike a lot of mirrors that I've played, I don't. Yeah, I think it's really compelling.
Yeah. Let's go one more. So we've talked. We'll have a couple more, but one more about season 4. We are about to see Beastgrave rotate out. What are you going to miss the most when Beastgrave rotates out? That I guess we're basically talking about the universal pool here. Matt, is there something that you're already tearing up over the idea of no longer seeing it?
I gotta give a shout out to Set the Tempo. I named a blog after it, and I actually think it's just really compelling design space. And like you guys were just doing on your episode about combo deck building, like sometimes you just fall into it naturally, which I think is actually what you want for deck synergy. The other thing is the Shrine of the Silent People board.
Ooh.
I really like that board. I really like the 2 hexes right up front. Fits my playstyle very well. And like it's, I was starting to rotate cards and boards and stuff the other day, and it was just kind of sad to see that one go.
Man, here I was saying, like, I guess we're just talking about universal cards, and Matt comes in with the boards. Thinking 2 steps ahead, this guy.
There you go.
Phil, any regrets about to come, about sad adieux?
So, couple things. I'm a little torn. I don't know like how much I'm gonna miss it, but we're losing pieces of the speed package. Like it's basically just not gonna be viable once Beastgrave is gone unless they add more to it. And well, that's sad for me because I like it with skinks. It's probably good because it was almost too easy. It's like it's 3 really easy surges. So maybe it's a good thing it's going to be gone, although I will miss it. And then similar to Set the Tempo being gone, while Stalkers have their in-faction better version of Set the Tempo, we're losing a lot of the good dual cards. Like the only ones left that are good are going to be really aggro.
Yeah.
And it's making it really hard for me to build a deck that uses the Great Plan because I just don't know where I'm going to get the duels from. Unless I just go aggro, which then feels really weird. So I'm hoping we see some more duels because like there's just not a lot of support for them right now once we rotate.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I mean, I think that's a thing you can count on seeing moving forward. It feels like a format they're gonna continue. But yeah, I guess you care because you got the Great Plan to feed. So
yeah, I mean, like the card doesn't work if you don't have scoreable duels, and
yeah, fair.
Yeah.
I went back and forth a little bit, and for me, it's a little bit of a hidden pick, but I think Uncontested. I kind of liked the pressure that could be put on an aggro warband with the dominant position Uncontested thing. Like I like okay, I really have to take this seriously. I don't care about objectives, but I know the other person does, and I've very rarely been in the position to be the one scoring Uncontested. I'm usually the warband that's trying to not have it scored on him. Although
same here.
And I mean, although I hated, like, oh, great, you scored 7 glory in this end phase because you dominant position Uncontested, whatever'd me, great gains me or something. I enjoyed the pressure of like having to decide like, okay, like here's my best charge, but maybe my actual best charge is onto this objective over here, and it's a less cool attack, but it forces the other player to try to do something about it. So I'm sure there will be something to come in to replace it at some point, but I thought that was part of what made hold objective and phase scoring powerful, which I think was a dynamic I enjoy in the game. So
definitely.
That's looking behind us. Let's look ahead of us. We're gonna start wrapping it up here. We got 2 left. So what do you hope to see in season 5? And we've kind of touched on some of this throughout, but what this can be this can be anything. Like, what's your big hope for season 5, Matt?
I think the biggest thing that I can say is just more people playing. I want to see more people playing this game and engaged and in the community and at tournaments. When I'm talking design wise, I actually want to see warband rotation. Is something that I'm really hoping for. I've said this kind of to some friends, and hey, like, I'd be happy if Rippas rotated out and they just weren't an option for me. I'd be happy if the warband left with this season. And it'll force me out of comfort zones. It'll force the, a much easier set of warbands to balance the meta around. I'd be a big fan of for championship format, just rotate them out.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to at some point. Like, if you just look far enough ahead, the numbers just get too big. It gets unwieldy. And so if you ask me, should we rotate warbands short-sightedly, a year or two ago, I'd say, no, of course not. But now, staring down the barrel of, 40 warbands about to be the number that we're looking at, it's like, oh, okay, never mind. We do need to do something about that. So, yeah, I would agree with that. Phil, hopes?
Yeah. I hope we revisit mechanics. I don't think that the rule set has gotten big enough that we should see mechanics disappear yet. I think that's mostly because we're only adding like one every season. So it's not like we're getting a whole bunch of stuff to have to try and work with. And like Hunger doesn't even have enough support yet. So I really hope that we see that. I don't really know what to expect with Primacy, but I hope it's still there. And then I hope we get something new. Just because I feel like it adds flavor to the game. And I think we need to revisit Magic. We already mentioned that like no one's playing it right now. And I think from its inception, we'd even talked some about like what are some of the maybe shortcomings of Magic, and what I think there was a while there where Davey, your prediction was always that we were going to get an upgrade that made a fighter a level 1 wizard, and it just never came.
Yeah. Wrong.
But maybe this season, maybe this will be the time.
Who knows?
And I just feel like it's such an integral part of Warhammer. Like, if we just even want to take a step back from the mechanics of the game and just talk about, like, this is a setting that is high fantasy. Magic is an integral part of Warhammer. Not having magic in the game just feels wrong. So I really hope that we can see it revisited, see it improved, tweaked, made useful enough for all warbands that it actually gets played, rather than just one warband continuing to use magic when it starts to become strong again.
I guess for me, it's right along the same lines as Matt. I'd like to see more people playing, and I think kind of hand in hand with that, I'd like to see them kill it with the warbands in the same way. I would love to have another season enjoying new warbands as much as I've enjoyed the warbands that came out through Direchasm. And I think if theoretically at least some part of this season gets played in a non-COVID dominated situation, then maybe they would get a chance to shine in the way that season 4 warbands didn't. And I think that would see us with more people playing. So, yeah. Last one, and we're going to keep this real brief because by the time this comes out, people are going to know whether we were wrong or right. So, but that's part of the fun of it. Little warband speculation. You can make it wish listy, or you can make it likely. I'm going to set aside. We can already presume we're going to see Cruel Boys. And we're going to see Thunderstrike style Stormcast Eternals. But any other warbands you're expecting to see this season coming up, or hoping to?
I think it would be really cool to see a Cities of Sigmar warband. I think it'd be really cool if they themed it around the Dawnbringer Crusades.
Yeah.
That would be really cool, because that's like a mystical quest somewhere, and kind of ties right into the Underworlds lore. So I kind of was thinking down those lines lately about, you know, how they could bring that into Underworlds.
I think they can make a really cool looking warband with that too. That'd be really fun.
Agreed. That was definitely my likely pick. It just feels, one, we don't have cities yet, and two, it just feels like it dovetails too easily and too nicely for them to just continue to ignore cities. And that, like, the model range would be great because they have so many different factions within the faction to be able to include like one-off fighters from each of those, which would be really cool. If I had to go wish listy, I think so. We've seen all the different chaos factions. We basically have every faction except for cities at this point, and Gargans. I don't think we're going to get a Gargan. I'm just going to say that just feels like a bridge too far to try and bring a Gargan in.
Hey, Malik, hold my beer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, see the first like expansion drop, and it's just a single Gargan. But I think I would really like to see demons in the vein of Be'lakor be revisited and actually have like a single master like controller, and then like all the different types of demons.
Cool.
I think that would be really cool. It could be lots of really interesting design space, because with each of the 4 gods, you could have different mechanics for each of the fighters. I don't know. It's super wish listy. It's probably not something they're going to do, but I think it would be really fun, really interesting. How about you, Davey?
Yeah, I think we'll see. You know, because we've had a couple Khorne war bands, but I think maybe some of these other factions might get a revisit there. My pick, I would like to see. There were some cool zombie models that came out in Cursed City. I'd like to see a kind of necromancer and zombie situation. I'm not sure how you make it distinct from other existing death war bands, but you know, maybe some combination of, you know, total garbo line, you know, stat lines, unless they start crowding. Maybe you can summon them, you know, in enemy territory or something like that. I don't know, but that feels like they could, if you got Underworld sculptors going to town like we know they can do, you'd have some pretty cool looking stuff.
I had the same, you know, Soulblight zombies on my list. I had the same thought. Maybe that's just staring at the Cursed City models in my head.
It would be super cool.
I guess the other one would be some kind of, whether it's Canite Shadowstalkers or reaching all the way back to Silver Tower, like the Mistweaver Sai and the Tenebril Shard. There'd be some real cool stuff you could do with that too. Cool figures there. So, but we don't even know what realm we're going to be in, so we'll find out. But gentlemen, that was our roundtable. Anyone got any thoughts that they didn't get a chance to express one way or the other on season 4, Direchasm, and the imminent passing of Beastgrave into the realms beyond?
Just really looking forward to the game continuing on, and hopefully continuing to refine the game, because I feel like it's gotten better every season.
I think on that same topic, you know, I want to see far lists. You know, we kind of mentioned, you know, support for the game. You know, like I'm really hopeful that happens. But I was going through it, and we will be down to 1 Forsaken and 6 restricted cards once rotation happens.
Holy cow.
Well, let's hope for a early far with season 5.
Wow.
So I was when I was rotating out, I always keep my restricted cards separate. I don't actually put them in order. And I was like, what even on this list is in this season. It's like Slicklerock, Proud Runner, Savage Visage, but like there's not much more.
Wow, that's wild to think about. That's
Daylight robbery.
Yeah, if you gave me the over under, I would not have gone. I would have taken the over on that. Wow. All right. That's pretty wild. Yeah. Well, thanks guys for taking part in this conversation. And you lucky people in the future who are listening to this, I can't wait to talk to you all about what we found out about season 5. So we may be heading in that direction for the next episode. Would be a good guess. But we like to keep it loose over here. Matt, if people wanted to get in touch with you or check out your blog, can we remind them where? I mean, if they're listening to this, I can just about guarantee they're already familiar with your blog. But if they aren't, first, they're wrong. And then second, how could they not be wrong anymore?
Yeah. So my blog's setthetempoblog.wordpress.com. You can find me on any of the Discord groups as Matt Set the Tempo. I'm in and around, and I say this a lot, but honestly, if anybody ever has article suggestions, content suggestions, I'm always up for it. I've kind of got my master list, and I always add things on, and usually it's one of those, hey, and the gears start turning, and I end up stopping everything that I'm doing to write something that just really caught my attention.
Yes. All right. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do it at WTHcast. That's our Twitter, whatthehexcast@gmail.com. You can come chat with us on the Discord. We're pretty much a open community. We pull in people from all the different podcasts on our network, be it Dog's War Cry, The Mortal Realm / Story Phase, or this one, What the Hex. We'll keep it on the DL, but there may be another podcast coming out on the network. We got some individuals working behind the scenes on that. It's a little too early to announce, but once it's out, we'll let you know. If you want to keep track of all that stuff, you can always go to themortalrealms.com. We thank those guys for, especially Aaron, for providing all the administrative work that for some reason he loves, which is good because no one else does. But he keeps all this going. So your recommended listening for this episode is Latter Days by Big Red Machine. And that's it for What the Hex. I've been Davey.
And this is Phil.
And this is Matt.
All right. Let's see if we can do this. I almost forgot the name of our cast for a second here. I was about to say, welcome to Warhammer Underworlds. I'm like, that's not right. I'm sure that's not right. All right. All right.